Southern Shores is open. It's the, which meeting are we on? We're in the March 19th meeting. Would you join me in the Pledge to Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd also ask you to please join me in our normal moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, we have an agenda in front of us. Anybody have any comments or changes or?
Make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. We also have a consent agenda, which consists of the minutes from March the 5th and the Government Education Access Channel budget. And basically, there are no changes to the budget as far as our finances are concerned. It's the annual $1,000 membership that we normally go through. So what is your pleasure?
I move we accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good. General public comment. You don't even need a sign-up sheet. You get 2 nods and or shake your head. That's good. Good, okay. All right. All right, well, the next thing item on the agenda is a public hearing with regards to the installment debt contract for canal maintenance. And Mr. Town Manager, you want
Yes, thank
to
you.
present that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. This is a public hearing required by the North Carolina Local Government Commission, and the purpose of the public hearing is to accept any public comment regarding the town's proposed use of an installment debt contract authorized under North Carolina General Statute 168, Article 3, Section 20, in order to finance the cost of the town's proposed Phase 2 canal dredging project. And before I open the public hearing, I just call your attention to tab 2 in the meeting booklet. Tab 2 shows a proposal from PNC Bank, and it also shows on the last page of that the amortization schedule. This project will be up to $3 million, not necessarily $3 million, but up to. The bids have gone out for construction, and they're due back in on March 28th. Whenever those bids come in, will dictate what the exact cost of the project will be. So if it's less than $3 million, then PNC will just adjust the principal, the amount financed downward. As you can see, in year 1, the amount of the debt service would be a total of $480,171.42. That will be 2 annual payments. So the result of that for the budget would be that that would represent 4 cents of tax rate of the new value, effective January 1 of 2013. So $480,171 would represent 4 cents on the current valuation of in our budget system now. So with that, I will open up the public hearing, and any comment, if whoever can just give their name and address and make comment. Any takers? With that, going once, twice, 3 times, no comment, I'll close the public hearing. Turn it back over to you.
Also required of us in going through this process is the approval of the resolution, which you also have in, I think it's in the main tab, it's under tab 3, is the resolution. So I guess we would open it up and discuss the resolution, what we want to do, discuss the whole plan, whatever questions you may have. I do know of one change that is made to the wording of the resolution, that on on the first page, 2A, amount to be financed, $3 million, is not, and cross out the word of, is not sufficient to. I mean, it's just a typo correction, but it reads a little bit better that way.
I believe that's on line 25, Madam Clerk.
Yeah, line 25. I'm sorry, I could have easily said that. first of all, why don't we, do I have a motion? I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2013-0302.
I'll second.
Can we have some discussion?
Well, I read this entire thing twice. This contract with the installment agreement with PNC, it's at a current interest rate of 1.72%, but that's valid until March 15th, which was a few days ago. Presumably, if the interest rate changes by the time we decide to do this, then that's going to change the payment rates, I would assume.
The interest, they will extend the interest rate past the closing, to the closing period, which will be the second week of May.
So they will so they're basically guaranteeing 1.72% through
That's
the
correct.
closing period? Okay, close that, all right.
That 1.72% is based on $3 million, and it stays the same even if it's less.
Stays the same if the principal's reduced, yes.
Okay.
Well, in fact, the resolution that we have before us right now has nothing to do with the interest rate, the structure of the loan, or anything else. This is a document that's required by the North Carolina Local Government Commission before we could enter any agreement. So I would suggest we go ahead and approve this, so that if we want to go back into a discussion on the terms of the loan, that's separate.
We could do that. I guess the question I have is, do we, if you have any problems or concerns that we're not going to move forward with the contract, do we even approve the resolution? Because the resolution's in effect saying we agree with this and we ought to go on to the local government with what we've seen.
At the April, regular meeting of April, if all goes according to the timeline, you will have the loan documents again in front of you to talk about the details if you want to do that at that time. You'll have that chance as well.
So do you feel that the resolution should, again, wait for that discussion? Or-
No, as Councilman Sanders says, the resolution, all the resolution says is that this council is committed to proceeding with the loan and the project itself, the two things, the loan and the project, and that at the time that's appropriate, we will have the loan documents to consider
Okay.
as well down the road.
Then let me raise, not to ignore your question, but let me raise an issue, because it's kind of related. The major concern I have with this, and I've worked with the Canal project since, I don't know, 10, 15 years, it seems like, from the whole beginning. The major concern I have with this is I feel like, once again, we're rushing, because we have no idea yet at this point what our budget's gonna look like this coming year. And especially with the reassessment, I just have so many questions in my mind. It seems like we're putting the cart before the horse. We're going to prove that we want to go ahead with a loan of this amount of money when we don't even know what our full budget's going to look like yet. So I guess I just wanted to have a discussion with all of you to see what your feelings are, what you think about that process before we say we're moving ahead in the first place. We saw what the effect of the reassessment was on our town. We know we're going to have some changes in the taxes. But we also later today are going to discuss roads. We've heard some of the things that the staff is looking for. I'm just concerned about the budget, and I'd just like to have this discussion before we say, hey, yeah, we're moving ahead with this $3 million budget.
Well, first of all, in all discussions regarding the canal project, along with all other capital improvements, I felt like there was consensus in this council that the highest priority goes to the canal. It's a project we started and needs to be finished. You know, we've decided that this was the route that we wanted to go, that it would be a tax levy. This is the estimated cost. This is the documentation required in order to proceed. I don't know why we would want to change course at this point. If this causes a problem with our other plans and impacts the tax levy too much, then in my opinion, we should adjust the other projects to match the budget. To sort of put the brakes on at this point I would definitely think would have some kind of impact on the timing of the dredging that we planned for this fall. So, you know, I feel like we should continue in this process. If something disastrous happens concerning the loan document, we don't have to accept it. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
So, this, I think, is just, you know, us showing this governmental entity our resolve to proceed with the project, not necessarily to complete it, but to proceed.
Everybody else, any other comments?
I have to agree. I think people have from everyone that I've talked to, has said, you know, let's get on with the project. Let's, you know, we talked about it, we've delayed it, we've had these problems and those problems, but now is our opportunity to see it through. And it's high time we did.
I agree with both of you. However, I am not of the opinion that we rob Peter to pay Paul. I think, you know, I've always been pushing to get these roads fixed and they're busy falling apart. So I'm really still against the idea of taking what we assigned to do road construction to throw it into the idea of canals, because that, I think, in turn, this is a 7-year loan. And so that means 7 years, that happens through 7 years. As for when we'll talk about our list of things that are falling apart in town, I think just bite the bullet. I mean, the requirement to do a reevaluation is a state requirement. The county waited 8 years to do it. They've done it. The average real estate loss in the town is 28%. If you lost more than 28%, if you lost about 32% of value, I figure you'll break even. If you lose more than that, you'll get paying less in taxes. If you get less, didn't lose as much, you pay slightly more in taxes. But I mean, I don't live in a canal. I don't directly benefit from a canal, but I think that we need to get this done, bite the bullet, pay the amount, whether it's 3.6 or 4.0 or whatever it is. 3.6 is roughly $180 a year on a $500,000 assessment, and on a $250,000 assessment, it's $90. So I think it's got to be done. I think people get a lot for their money, and this is part of the whole thing. I agree. I think we should just hold the course, go for it, get it done, and hopefully it gets done and paid off in 7 years, and the project gets done. And we have clean canals this time next year. We have everything's working properly. So, and as to its impact on the budget and how that affects, well, that's a separate item that by the time we put this resolution through, at that point, we'll know roughly where we stand, what we got to do, how much it is, what's happening. We'll get a better handle on all sorts of things, and from that point on, we figure things out. That's all I see it that way. Just take it a step at a time.
I appreciate the comments. You mentioned about not robbing Peter to pay Paul. We also then have a commitment of 3 cents for doing roads. Just want to remind, and I totally agree, because we made that commitment, you know, sometime before. Okay, you ready for a vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Speaking of roads, and because it's one of our favorite subjects, we've got a list here. Mr. Town Manager, would you like to?
Thank you. This, under the next tab, this is a list of repair observations that the CIP committee this year observed firsthand, and we had Mr. Anloff of Anloff Engineering put this list together, not necessarily in any order. But what I wanted to do first, if I could, is a similar exercise, is go through the two numbers. Our revenue neutral rate right now, as it stands with the new valuation, is 0.235. which is 23.5 cents under the new valuation for our general operating budget as it exists this year. For streets, if we take the same amount of money and extrapolate that back to the 3 cents, of course, it's $516,000. Doesn't change. The dollar amount does not change if you extrapolate the 3 cents to what it is, and then that comes out to be 4.3 cents. So the new 3 cents that we talked about for 3 years now becomes 4.3 cents in simple math. So we're talking about a dollar amount of $516,000. We can go through all these. You'll see the total list here is about $1.5 million, or 1.6 million total. You know, Mr. Anloff, I think, can comment on what priorities are in his mind, or council can comment on what priorities are in your mind. But I've made this recommendation for the last 2 years, and I'm in a position to make it again, that I recommend that the council authorize me as a pre-budget exercise to put $516,000 in the capital reserve fund, and we prioritize these as we go through during the year. It's not unsimilar to what we did last year. We had a list, but we had to reprioritize as the year went on because of different things that popped up that we didn't know about. So that method is similar to the way Dare County does it. Basically, we're creating a capital reserve fund, and we're budgetizing that July, August, September, as opposed to trying to go through the whole exercise now, picking a street here and a street there. But that being what it is, if you look at this list, notice that number 8 comes off, Fern Lane. You've already funded that for this fiscal year. And also, there are several on here. Let's see, number 26 comes off. And there's one more, 19. 19 comes off. With that, if I could defer to Mr. Anloff and have him comment on the method that we arrived at this, and also any comments you might have, Joe, on prioritization.
Joe, before you start, can I ask you one question? Yes. On number 3, with the amount of money involved, it doesn't say rebuild. Is that really a rebuild?
It has been calculated as a rebuild.
Okay, so it's really, because I thought it looked like it was a rebuild, okay.
It is, in earlier estimates, it was $870,000 to $878,000, which was estimated for that roadway reconstruction.
Excuse me, Joe, you're gonna need to stand up in front of the mic if you don't mind, because it won't come across on the video. Thank you.
Sure. Clamshell was estimated as a complete rebuild. The roadway's old and oxidized, and it's got different sections of older pavement patches. In earlier CIP recommendations, it was estimated at $878,200. We've been able to refine our prices. When we did that project with Bill Gleason as the head and main person preparing these written documents and figures, we used a higher dollar amount per roadway section as a multiplier. Since then, we've gotten some more project data back. I use more current prices for the preparation of this. And Clamshell Trail is now $655,350 as an estimated price to completely rebuild that section. It's a considerable amount of roadway. It's nearly, it's 3/4 of a mile.
I was just surprised at the absence of the word rebuild, because I thought that's probably what it was.
It's because we haven't, when we derived this list by riding around. It was
Right.
Mayor Denny, Councilmember Kowalski, Peter, and myself. And we looked at these roadways, and we're starting to get towards the end of the CIP roads recommendations for the 2008 street improvement project. I mean, they are projected out to, the original document projected out a 7-year estimated plan, but we're starting to go through all those roadways. And some of the main ones that are left are Mistletoe, Hillcrest Drive, Duckwoods Drive. These are things that are left over from earlier years that we either didn't have enough money to do, or because of design constraints, we weren't able to complete those within the projected fiscal year. So these roads were ordered alphabetically, but the priority would be Duckwoods Drive, number 4, would be the highest priority because it is the remnant from the 2012, 2013, the latest version of the capital improvement plan. And that would complete, the completion of construction of a repair of that section would complete that fiscal year requirement. The tier 2 for that same year, 2012, 2013, includes Hillcrest Drive, Mistletoe, and Wax Myrtle Trail. We looked at Wax Myrtle Trail and did not see any need for repair to that section of roadway. Mistletoe is item number 14. And Hillcrest Drive has some patchwork on it, and that is item number 11. So that is, according to the last published version of the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2012-2013, tier 2 roadways, those are the roadway sections that I have, that they would be of highest priority. And then if we go back to the earlier version of that document, we could start to see some other roads brought into the discussion, including Yopon Trail, portions of Sea Oats Trail, and of course we've jumped around. Widgeon Court showed up in 2013, 2014, we've already completed that. Clamshell Trail shows up in 2013, 2014, and Dogwood Trail North is on projected fiscal year 2014, 2015. So other than that, some of these roadways are roadways that we've discussed in the past, that have sort of been hanging around the periphery of discussion, but may not have shown up on an official capital improvement plan. So by their inclusion in this table, they have now become at least referenced for capital improvements. Now the prioritization would be something we would need to develop.
To start that process, can you, I was trying to keep up with you on the numbers, but I got Duckwood's number 4 now becomes number 1.
Yes. And then Mistletoe, which is number 14.
How about Hillcrest Drive, number 11?
Number 11, they would all be in that.
Okay, so
same
number
group.
11 is 2 or 3?
Sure.
Okay, so number 11 is 2, number 14 is 3.
Yep.
I got number 28 is 4, number 22 is 5. Am I getting off?
No, I would agree with that.
Because we just, for administrative, we
Well,
need to
I
go ahead
think-
and rank them.
Yes, and I think one other tool that we can use to reference is over the years, we've had the street commission prepare a priority list, and also there's an ITRI report, and we can go back, and those include roads, all the roads. So we can look at the ones we finished and just,
Well, that's kind of what we're doing right now, though.
yes, agreed.
We got to come, I mean, I got 500, in other words, we put $516,000 on the table. I was trying to say, where does that get us on this group of streets?
Sure,
on
and
priority?
we can work from that number backwards until we fill it, but beyond anything that we've referenced in the CIP, even project out to 2015, some of these roads, there's a handful of roads on here that are fairly new, that we haven't discussed much in the past. And some have been pushed far down the priority list in the past. Hollow Beach Court, for example, is one that we've pushed way down the priority list because of the number of residents that actually live on the roadway, the number of undeveloped properties that are still on that roadway. So I do agree with the list that you laid out as a priority. I'm not sure, I think you're working up the numbers now, where that gets us.
But I like the idea that Peter mentioned, of just authorizing at this point a budget item for building the budget. Because I'm assuming, and I'm Mr. Town Manager, that when we do any prioritization, it's coming back to the council. for
Yes.
approval.
Yes.
So that, almost at this point, we could say budget the 516, and then really sit down and agree which one should come first. Because what's going through my mind anyway, is this past year when we talked about having a set of money sitting aside for small projects that occur, that happen, and we don't have any money in the budget for it. So if we can at least start off with an amount of money for the roads, and then start prioritizing during the year, we'd have an opportunity to cover those if it happens. Just a thought.
Yeah, we're going to increase that pothole line that we've had each year. That's only had about $1,500 in it. We're going to increase that upwards to at least $20,000 this year.
That would be in addition to the 516.
That wouldn't be capital. That would be in the straight
Just
general
capital.
operating budget. The 516 would be just for capital,
Okay.
street capital.
So I have a different perspective.
I'm so
And I've spoke to everybody in the CIP committee regarding this. In past councils, we've done Holly Trail as a almost complete road bid, Hickory, Potoskeet Loop, Gray Squirrel, Chickahaw Trail, the one whole section. We've done Deer Path, Gravy Pond, section of Spindrift. We've got Honeysuckle scheduled, the entire road for the spring. We've got Fern Drive scheduled, and we are working currently, I guess, trying to get Duckwoods Drive operational, get that done. So that completes the project. And that's a process of, I would say, 6 years of road construction, 7 years roughly road construction. But when you go around and you look, you find out that there are many small areas that are problematic between garbage trucks, school buses, cul-de-sacs, all of this. And I think Hallett said that one of the things that we're staring at is cul-de-sac work and getting that done. So I would argue, let's forget some of these streets that are really not that bad, the large entire roadway repairs, and take the $560,000 and throw it into all the smaller stuff, because there's a multiple. I mean, I got a list here. I can rattle off at least the top 12 of the small stuff, you know, the stuff that's the 28,000, 3,000, 2,000, that type, 12,000, so that people in all these cul-de-sac areas that are driving through mud can have some kind of benefit of getting their little sections fixed for a small amount. So maybe, I kind of see, maybe it's time to back off on the large road construction to a certain degree. I mean, you've got Duckwoods Drive, which is talking $48,000, which I think is a cheap amount. No, I'm sorry, Duckwoods talking at $171,000, which I think is cheap. I mean, my mind says cheap in price, but that's 2/3 of the total amount, almost, you know, getting to a half maybe. And then we throw in and do all the small stuff. We do stuff like, I don't know, I put down number 3, Teal Court. That's $8,000. Make those people happy in the corner of Teal Court. Do Woodland Circle, do Yopon Trail, do Yucca Lane. That's all little stuff that help people out. Do Mizzen Mast and do that North Dogwood stretch maybe, and the North Dune Loop and Osprey and Pintail Court. And, you know, that type, Jingai Trail, if we got enough money left over. And you can get a lot of areas done that are upsetting a lot of people that live in all those areas, and we clean that all up. And once we get that cleaned up and that whole crew that we can put a whole bunch in, then we look back the following year and we say, okay, now, we've got that done. Anything else? And do we now go to what's the next street to tackle and go back to a street or sections of streets? Because there's a lot of little stuff all over the place that's problematic.
Are all the little items that you noticed, the ones that are the smart, are they on this list?
Yeah, they're all on this
Okay,
list. Yeah,
okay.
they're all on
They
the list.
are, and that,
Yeah.
the evolution of that is that this current list on table 1, dated March 4th, 2013, is a marrying of the major roadways that were covered in the CIP. And in 2009, Tim Gregory solicited quotes to do all the repairs that George is talking about, all of the, you know, the minor stuff that didn't make it. We never discussed it on the CIP task force. We never discussed it because we were looking at major road construction for budgeting purposes. So this becomes a conglomerate. This list is finally the joining of those smaller items with the major items.
I think that makes sense.
Because, I mean, if you go down some of this stuff, it's like, my God, needs to work. And it's not gonna be easy either. And we need to be able to juggle, because Joe knows, and we get into these issues of right-of-way issues, or, you know, you try to get to easements. And then that's what's slowing down Duckwoods Drive, easements. So the same thing happens on the other stuff. Now you gotta get easements, so maybe you can, if you get this road's easement faster, you know, and people are all happy about it, you can get that done, and that one, another one you can't get easements for, or whatever you do, that slows you down. So you gotta be able to juggle the stuff around and get something accomplished in the year that you have. It's not a smooth discussion as we run down there and throw down asphalt and do a road, because especially with those circles that we've got there, that's gonna be an interesting concept that we gotta get through.
George, I agree with what you're saying. To sort of summarize what we've looked at, the 5 priorities that have been pointed out look logical. They're a little more expensive than some of the other items, but it only totals, if it comes close to the estimated cost, $201,000, unless I missed a digit. 298, I missed something there.
About 100,000.
Okay. But that still leaves, if they're close to the estimate, 200,000 roughly for all of the small items, which when you start combining them, you might get a more economical price rather than these individual jobs. So, I'm in agreement that we should attend to those priorities, and then let the town manager, advise us as to what can be done with the remainder of that 516,000.
But I would like to see council members really go out and take a look at, other than a dollar look and, and a list alphabetical, go take a look at some of these things so you get an idea that if you go and march yourself down, I don't know, I'll make this up, Bear Track Lane, you might find out that even though it's listed number 1 here and it's in alphabetical order, that you go and you find that Blue Pete is horrible, and that maybe Blue Pete might be not as bad as, I don't know, I'll make it up, as Yopon Trail, but Pintail is absolutely horrible compared to the others. So there is that is that part of this whole 2 pieces of paper as to exactly what does it look like and what people are living under, what kind of road conditions. So that's, I think, should be looked at too. And then we agree to a bunch, and the town manager can pick and choose and figure it all out at that point as to what flows and doesn't flow.
Larry, do you have any thoughts?
Well, my concern here is, George, if you do the little patches along the way, it's kind of a Band-Aid fix, didn't we?
Well, they're not patches, they're replacements.
Didn't the council some time back decide that when we rebuild roads, we're going to bring it up to a certain standard? I mean, we're going to take into consideration drainage and a step-off area and bring it up to a standard where people would have maybe a walkway on the side. You can't do that if you're only going to do part of the road.
No, but these are, I mean, like Pintail Court is an entire roadway, full depth rebuild of that roadway.
And when we do that, then I assume that we'll do what the council has directed the engineers to do, is to bring that up to a state standard type of road.
Oh, yeah.
But how can you do that if you're just patching a 100-foot section?
Well, we're not.
Can't bring
It's
a
all,
100-foot section
we're
up to
doing
a
all
state
of,
standard.
but we would do all of a Pintail Court. We would do, Teal Court. We do the entire cul-de-sac, because the rest of the road is fine. So that's why we're looking at why, like in Teal, it's the cul-de-sac is the major issue. So, but the rest is fine. So that's how.
It's fine surface-wise.
It's fine surface-wise, it's not a problem with that road.
But it's not up to the standard that we would do if we rebuilt that road in its entirety. I mean, it doesn't have to have areas.
Well,
close.
But I don't think we want to rebuild all roads. We're looking at fixing the problems.
No, I think there are some problems that will be exacerbated if they're allowed to persist. For example, Teal Court, there's school buses, garbage trucks are turning the radius too tight. They'll actually expedite the degradation of the roadway because they'll start to undermine the road. Osprey, the T intersection of Osprey Lane, for example, is a place that holds water. It's a giant pothole. It inhibits people's ingress and egress from their private property. There are certain things I think we need to fix as a matter of public safety. I agree. Every roadway that we do, we try to do by, as close as our right-of-ways allow us to do by NCDOT standards, but there's a whole handful of things that really haven't been on our radar. It's been on the radar screen of a few people, but not the mass group, that we need to fix to allow people just to get in and out of their homes without damaging their vehicles and things, allowing emergency vehicles to get in there quickly without having to negotiate a major pothole or an edge of a roadway that's crumbling. There are certain things I think we have to fix.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, if I could
Sure.
throw something in. What I would recommend is that we schedule this discussion for the June workshop, and the engineer can come in at that time and give his own prioritization, notwithstanding the prior CIP, what it is today, because that's what we're working on. And I think that's what y'all are talking about, potholes, everything, and prioritize at that time, and we have that discussion. And by that time, we will have presumably we'll have adopted the general operating budget for the year. And we can just have it out, that discussion, and go down it line by line. And by that time, Joe could have made a full recommendation on what we can do for the year.
And what I hear you all saying sort of supports the idea of just going ahead and budgeting the money right now, because we should be making some of these. Not apply it to each roadway, not apply it to anything. I mean, in our minds, we may have some commitments, but we can discuss them when we get to that point. So I would make a motion that we authorize the town manager to create a budget line item of $516,000. And that we'll discuss the priorities in at the June workshop meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm assuming there was no more discussion,
And,
I'm sorry.
we will propose to place that in the capital reserve fund, and that'll show up in the proposed budget on the capital reserve fund. So as we adopt projects during the year, you would just authorize to pull it out of capital reserve and transfer it into streets for individual projects that you approve.
And you'll remind us, that's our 3 cent commitment.
Yes, and that is your 3 cent commitment, but start getting 4.3 in your mind, because now that's what it is, at revenue
4.3
neutral.
cent commitment.
4.3 cent commitment is
Okay.
revenue neutral. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And that's included in the revenue neutral amount that you mentioned, or is it separate?
That's correct. The 4.3 cents. Now, the revenue neutral is for everything right now. General operating budget is 23.5 cents, but that's based on just this year's budget. So when I come in here with a proposed budget, it may not be 23.5 cents. That's just the revenue neutral rate.
But that revenue neutral is including, I think what he's asking, includes the roads we did this year.
Oh, yeah,
So
this
it's
year.
part of the whole-
Sure, absolutely.
So it would include the 5, well, actually, how much did we spend this year?
You spent more than 516,000, correct.
But that was, okay, was that within budget, or did we?
Some of it was you actually budgeted more than 516, and then we actually increased during the year a couple of times as well.
So we're not talking about .43 on top of .235?
No,
Okay.
No, no,
I just wanted to be clear.
And honeysuckle is covered, right? We have no problem with honeysuckle.
Honeysuckle is covered. Duckwoods will be reauthorized in next year's budget. All right.
And we're considering tall pines and bridges as a separate item.
That's correct. That will be a separate item.
Anything
So that will come in, the match for that would come in as a separate item in capital reserve, whatever how we budget it, correct? Yes, sir.
Any other comments, questions?
And the bill for Trinity Trail Bridge will be coming in also next year.
We'll have to rebudget that again this year.
So we're going to have an interesting budget discussion.
It's only money.
Okay. Anything under new business? Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you. Just a couple of items to refresh our memory. March 28th will be the day that bids are due for the Canal Phase 2 project. Mr. Anloff and I will be hopefully evaluating those and hopefully have a recommendation for you 4 days later after the Easter weekend at your April meeting. If we do recognize a lowest, most qualified bidder at that time, the next day, I'll be taking all the paperwork to Raleigh to give to the local government commission so that they can consider it at their first Tuesday in May meeting. If they approve it that day, then there will be a closing to occur the middle of May, of course, if you authorize that, authorize signatures on those closing documents. So there's still that period of time to change your mind, so to speak. The middle meeting of April will be the date that we will present, the finance officer and I will present a draft working budget for you to consider. Of course, we can have discussions between now and then, individually or as a council, but that's the date that we propose coming in at your workshop and say, here's what we've got. Here's how much we're over, here's how much we're under, here's revenue neutral, et cetera. The Tall Pine Bridge, the work is underway by Kimley Horn. They're out there, their surveyor is out there now, surveying, doing the survey work for the bridge, right away, et cetera. So if you see anybody out there, that's what's going on right now with Tall Pine Bridge. And that's basically all I have for a report today.
And that engineering is, again, it's like a whole 2-year term or 2-year time frame?
Well, the phase one, the engineering part will be a year, and
A
then the
year.
construction will
Okay.
be a year after that.
Okay. Very good. Any questions? questions? I should have mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, but I think all of you know that the mayor is out of town. He's obviously not here, and I don't have any report here from him. So from the council members, Larry?
I have nothing.
Nothing.
I have nothing. Do you have a motion to adjourn?
Sure.
Thank you.